In 2014, I traveled just outside of Dallas, Texas, to interview Carol J. Adams, author of the seminal critical theory vegan feminist work, The Sexual Politics of Meat. Mrs. Adams delves into the culture of meat in America and its historical, racial, gender, and class implications on society. She draws a compelling link between male dominance and hypermasculinity with the slaughter and consumption of animals. Mrs. Adams also argues that the barbaric treatment of animals is correlated to the objectification of women as mere pieces of meat and people of color as the voiceless other. So when my sister from another mother and fellow vegan artist Keisha Lanyap began her art recovery project Consumption, which boils down Carol J. Adams' theory into a concentrated eclectic masterpiece, I knew that their two spirits were kindred, and I was compelled to offer up a collaborative work that showcased the brilliance of these women and lend my artistic voice in the form of sound and light. Consumption.
Tofu sausages on it, $4.17. Tofu is so powerful it destabilizes putting together a barbecue. I mean, cooking a tofu, I mean, in a sense, they're showing the power of tofu.
Yes.
This is...
You could run with these guys, Doug. Sure, they might be 3 times your size, but you have 3 times the steak. That's what a man eats. That was a trouble. Grab your umbrellas, ladies. Hurricane Doug's gonna make it rain.
Ladies. Did you hear ladies?
3 times the steak makes you feel like 3 times the man. The new triple steak stack from Taco Bell.
So, did you see the whole scripting of African American men there?
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So he measured the dorky, frumpy white guy can measure up by eating more meat.
Right. And it naturalizes African American men as being the athletes. I mean, it's just, there's so much naturalizing and normalizing of stereotypes in that one. Mm-hmm. It's so nobody ever high fives after eating tofu.
Huh.
Let's start. You know?
Yes.
Well, let's start a movement. So, right. I mean, again, it's this athleticism. Athleticism is defeated by tofu. A big, fat, juicy cheeseburger in a land of tofu.
Huh.
And then this is a little...
Oh, wow.
So in this one, his masculinity is so destabilized by his tofu, the only way to restore the balance is to buy a Hummer. You know, I know it's sort of outrageous, but the message, I think, is showing an implicit power to tofu.
It is.
Which is, and why not? You know, it's only 2 ounces of tofu to 1 ounce of meat. So, let's see what's next. Yeah, this is a new one from Ireland. Wish this was made from tofu, said no one ever. Like, so I think that what's happened with tofu is that tofu has become the part, synecdoche, I think is the correct way, where the part recalls the whole. And tofu is the part of vegan diet that's recalling the whole, which is emasculating to the dominant culture. But in recalling the whole, it's also showing this extreme power of tofu to destabilize.
Yes.
So, that's my thought. And how I said that.
I love this process.
It's so hard to get the sound bites. So anyway, and when we were driving down here, I was reading this book about Frankenstein, and it introduced the literary concept of the absent referent. And I remember putting the book down and thinking, that's what animals are. Animals disappear. And they're massaged into something else. We lose consciousness of them as animals. And then I went to sleep, and the next morning I thought, and that's what women are.
Yes.
And this is the intersection that different absent reference, the oppression of one form of absent referent is used to intensify or be applied towards the other. And that was the key to finishing Sexual Politics of Meat. Now I had it. Now I had the theory. And everything else was getting it right. Just this summer I've been working on something new, which is a memoir of caregiving. It's a caregiving for my parents and Bruce's mom. And in the midst of it, it was just so hard because there were many heartbreaking things happened and many moving things happened. And I'd sit down and I'd say to myself, Carol, you did the Sexual Politics of Meat. You created out of nothing something. You sat down every day. You weren't a published author at that point. You believed in yourself enough to keep working. That's all you have to do. So it was like the book became a gift all over again. Just, you don't have to make sense out of it now. Just believe that you can make sense of it. So that's what I did. But
And one thing I find about it, because I was doing a little research on it, on your most famous book. Well, first I came across your other books, like How to Become a Vegetarian Easily, and you also have some books for geared towards how to deal with children and introducing them into veganism. But for the Sexual Politics of Meat, it was like such a gap. Either people loved it or they hated it. There's no in between.
And this was very interesting. When Rush Limbaugh hated it on the radio, he just hated it all summer, one summer, 91 or 92. It was like, so what? People said, doesn't this bother you, Rush Limbaugh talking about you? And I said, he doesn't know where I live.
Right.
The people in Dunkirk, they knew where I lived. The people calling that local radio station, they knew me. And they could find me. I did not feel that when I was being talked about on the local radio.
Right.
Rush Limbaugh, what is he? I mean, he's really just a big fathead. I mean,
blowhard.
And he's making people read the book.
Yes. He's giving you publicity.
Well, we didn't know. People weren't sure that Rush Limbaugh's people read books. So, but and I went.
Yeah.
I was brought to speak at a university. Rush Limbaugh would have this thing where he had people clipping from local university newspapers. And if they found something that was politically correct, they'd send it in. Well, this professor, fresh out of graduate school, gave a paper about feminism and vegetarianism. I mean, in the world of academia, there was nothing new or original there. Nothing. I mean, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying it didn't move something forward. It was summarizing. It was comparing like ideas in Sexual Politics of Meat to Peter Singer's Animal Liberation. Well, Rush Limbaugh got so upset at that, and he had everybody who was a graduate of that school write to that school and complain. How could their funds be going to this? And so when I got there the following year, I said to the young professor, well, how are you? She said, I was very shaken by that. Very shaken. And I said, these aren't just ideas. Where did you get the idea that this was just something we're talking about?
Right.
People are very threatened by these ways of changing your life.
Yes.
They're not gonna take it easily. I mean, this is real stuff. This is stuff, life and death issues. We're not gonna change people just by having academic discussions.
No.
But people are gonna be very threatened by
They
it.
are.
I'm revising the Sexual Politics of Meat slideshow.
Okay.
And the challenge is that there is so damn many examples that I've got to cut it down. That's what I'm working on. So, this is the new one. These are all examples showing there's a sexual politics of meat, but what was I looking for? There's just so many awful examples.
What's that quote about metrosexuality?
Can stuff it. So this is a over here. What I did is I was looking at all the examples of sort of academic articles that now say yes, there is a sexual politics of meat.
Oh, they agree with you now.
Yeah, I just these burgers and Hummers, the crisis of masculinity. So I was just quickly showing how it's changed in 25 years. But so here's an example. All right. Of sexual politics of meat. Here, like this. Eat like a man. The only cookbook a man will ever need. Here's the pink sweater guy. There's his hors d'oeuvres.
Real men don't eat
sorry.
Right?
So that's, and then here, for once, meet your dad's expectations. So always around Father's Day, a lot of meat. Man up for 2 times the bacon. This is this summer. And this is, here, let's just do this. So I've decided I don't like showing these videos, so I like to do slides instead, because then I can talk about it. So this, I'm just trying this out. This is this summer. So Mystique starts off, and then as Mystique eats this.
Wow, she turns into a man eating a burger.
And then it says man up at the end.
Right. So that's eat like you mean it. But you know what? When don't we eat like we mean it?
Right.
I mean, really. Then somebody just sent this to me. I have to fix that still. Yeah, so muscle meds, carnivore, beef protein. Knew the muscle building power of beef cannot be disputed. So it's just examples, man up with every bite. This is Canada. But see, if you've got to man up, if you've got to keep eating, again, it's this instability. Look, we just did that one. So let's see. There's some really terrible examples. So I've been working with how do you do a trigger warning, and
could you explain what trigger warning is?
so that's to let college, especially on college campuses, know that what you're going to be seeing can be upsetting, can be disturbing. So here's the upset reference. Is this where? Here. Oh, so this is from this summer. So Jennifer Lawrence, her nude photos were released of her. And Vanity Fair. Look at what they do. I mean, completely sexualizing and this tantalizing. She's in the water. But what she said was, it just makes me feel like a piece of meat. And so this is another aspect of the sexual politics of meat. Because the animal, a piece of meat doesn't feel.
Right.
A piece of meat is dead.
Right.
So that's when I go to, this is the absent referent, that they're more than meat. And this is David Lynch from, what's his famous show that's not coming back, the TV show that everybody's very excited about. So this was his entry into the cow parade.
Not Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, yeah. The cow parade of New York about 20 years ago.
David Lynch is vegan?
No, he just wanted to show this, but kids started crying, so they removed it from the cow parade. But my point is, if meat eating were really okay, why can't
It shouldn't
the cow be in the cow parade?
Right.
So this is a movement this summer. I love this. Missing, have you seen Hetty? By a chicken. See, this is restoring the absent referent.
Yes. That's brilliant. I
Yeah.
love that.
This, I would love to see this,
Everywhere.
Then this is a new one that somebody just sent. This is from Germany. God's finest work has always been done with ribs. So this is a sexist. I mean, this is misogyny too.
Right, because woman comes from Adam's rib.
Right.
The whole-
Or you could say Adam was a rough draft. All right. Now I'm going to change that. But Body by Bacon. So absent referent. Here, this is Brazil.
The rump row.
And so here's Playboy. So what I've started to say, I'm going to just ignore that. It's too hard. But look, so this is hate speech. This is hate speech.
Take it like a woman.
Right. This is hate speech. This is hate speech. That's what I want to communicate. This is misogyny.
That's a woman only.
Right. This is from Amherst College. This is misogyny benefiting from speciesism. I try to find these sound bites for this complicated idea.
That's a good one.
But so that's misogyny benefiting from speciesism. I don't remember what I put. So I was in the middle of working on Living Among Leaders, and I had come up with this thing that said, "Don't do it while people are eating meat. Don't answer questions. You just can't win. The absent referent is right here. Nobody wants you to win at this point."
No.
But I was with a group, and see, this is how I stereotype. I was with a group of 3 progressive nuns. Well, tell me, why are you a vegan? And I thought, okay, even though I am the one saying, don't do it, I will do it. Well, what about this? And I answered. Well, what about this? And I answered. So it's kind of like the animals don't suffer, they do suffer. The environment, well, plants, whatever it is, Hitler, all of these things. And when we were done, she said, "Boy, you're relentless." And I thought, so relentless is having one more question than they have answers. I mean, having one more answer
Then they have
the
questions
questions for. That's what made me relentless. And I walked away and I thought, you didn't follow your own advice.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this kind of situation.
Well, you would think it would not be that way.
Right. People, it's kind of like the whole issue about women's oppression, or that people don't want to give up their stash. Whatever that stash is.
No.
Or their status. I think, because I really do think that eating animals is so ingrained in American culture, and especially how you discuss is ingrained in maleness of American culture. So that's, I don't know how do you see that, how do you see pulling those apart?
Well, I think it's interesting, and maybe there's time that we'll go in and just look at a few of these images I've got. But what's happened since 1990 with the sexual politics of meat? In 1990, I was identifying, hey, there's this association between meat eating and masculinity, and look, isn't this interesting? Oh,
I'm finished.
Isn't there might be a little more, or we could challenge me to do it again. Isn't it interesting there's this connection between meat eating and masculinity? Mm-hmm. But now what's going on is you're manning up.
Yes.
You gotta man up, So masculinity and manhood is so unstable that not eating meat every day destabilizes it, which shows that it's not a given, but it's a very fragile identity. And that's what creates the anxiety. And it creates these regressive reassertions of, there's one Kentucky Fried Chicken ad from Australia, and the man comes in wearing a pink sweater with hors d'oeuvres that are vegetarian.
Oh my!
And they say, do they make that sweater for men? So I mean, it's just dripping with masculinity iconic reinforcement. And of course, at the end, he's joined the pack, the Kentucky Fried Chicken pack. He's taken the sweater off. It's around his shoulders. They're eating dead chicken. So it's not enough to have put yourself outside that meat eating and masculinity equation. You have to be reincorporated in, and that need of reincorporation shows us the instability. That one vegetarian hors d'oeuvre or a pink sweater.
Can threaten your manhood.
That's right. It's a
How is that
I mean,
possible?
it just shows that manhood is, it's not under threat. It's never been stable. And that's a liberating thing.
Or it's totally misconceived as
Right.
well. Like maybe it has to be a redefinition of what manhood is.
Well, we're on a slippery slope there, but it might be that different communities need to struggle with that issue in a different way. I think, on the one hand, I think athletic men who are vegans, it's very important and wonderful that there are athletic men who are vegans, but it shouldn't be about being man. We are healthy, athletic vegans.
Gotcha.
The gender binary,
Right. Why
Is
do I
what-
have to be identified by my gender?
right, the gender binary is unstable, but our dominant culture doesn't want it to be unstable.
Now I understand where you're coming at the angle. Okay.
At least, you know, that, but I'm just saying that different communities might have different needs here, so I'm not trying to,
It's not
Sure.
a one
right. But at
quick
least,
fix for all
right,
communities.
but I don't think, you know, the traditional notion of maleness as white. During all those years, the 1980s, when we were doing this huge housing battle, and Bruce and I started a hotline for battered women, and for the first year and a half it was in our house and at my work, but every night we were the ones who were on, and then, I mean, we started training people immediately, because Bruce had said it takes one kind of group to start something and another kind of group to continue it. If we just get it started, people will believe in it, and then you'll be able to hand it on. But so I was reading a lot about domestic violence and finding these connections with harming animals and battering, and so the 80s, you know, in a sense, I've talked about it as my wilderness years. I wasn't part of a community that was having conversations about animal rights or vegetarianism. I was just living this life where I had this intuition from 1974, but I didn't know how to explain it. I read all these books on African American history and on racism, trying to understand what is wrong here that people are so afraid of integration in the 1980s. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And why are they attacking, you know, why, this doesn't make sense. So how do I make sense of this? But then you know, so my activism was the greatest gift ever for writing Sexual Politics of Hate. Because that's when I really got it about intersecting oppressions, was through the activism.